Hello, my name is Andy Hills. I am a GP day to day, and I'm based in the northeast of England. I'm doing a video because, well, a series of videos hopefully, because of the fact that I'm in a research study looking at a new treatment called TMS. And I've had my first session today, and I thought maybe it would be a good opportunity to do a video like this to see my journey from the beginning to the end of it. I thought about doing this because on sort of trying to research TMS, I was getting quite confused. It seems all very complicated, and that's something that I found a bit of a struggle, and so I thought it would be good, particularly for someone like myself who's going through the treatment, to take you on my journey and hopefully break down what it is and what it feels like. So, although yes, I am a GP, I've been a GP for about 7 years or so. I've been a doctor for 11 years. I'm not doing this video as a doctor. I'm doing this video as a person who suffers with anxiety and depression, and have done for some time. I have been on medication for over 10 years and have found that it's given some benefits, but it certainly hasn't stopped any flare-ups or exacerbations of the condition, and those flare-ups are exceptionally distressing. As a result, I got a letter in the post from my GP about 3 or 4 months ago inviting me to take part in a research study taking place in Newcastle upon Tyne in the northeast of England. And the study was looking at this treatment called TMS. So, what is TMS? TMS stands for Transcranial Magnetic Stimulation. It has been around for some time. It's been around for about 20 years or so, but it's only really becoming mainstream in the last few years. In America, it's quite widely available. In the UK, less so. What it involves is an acknowledgement, in depression particularly, that there are parts of the brain that simply don't work as well as others. And the theory goes that there may be genuinely depressed parts of the brain which, if stimulated, might work better, and if someone has depression, that might, if that part of the brain is stimulated, then that might make their depression better. I appreciate that might be an overly simplistic way of viewing it, but I think to give an absolutely accurate description of it would go way over my head. So forgive me if I'm not getting this factually spot on. The area of the brain that they look at is about here, and I had to Google what it's called. It's called the dorsal lateral prefrontal cortex. So I've heard of the frontal cortex, that's at the front, that makes sense to me. Lateral means the side, so that sort of makes sense. Dorsal, I forget what that means, but essentially it's here. It seems to be a part of the brain which has, when it's been researched, people have said, oh, it has, people with depression might have issues with it. And what TMS is essentially is using a magnet, electromagnet, I think is the term. It is connected to my scalp, and it sends electrical impulses into my brain in the hope to awaken that bit of it, and hoping in doing so that my depression symptoms may improve. It's been used in other conditions. It's been used in anxiety, I understand. I think it's being used in things like schizophrenia. And it's not just a case of finding bits of the brain that are a little bit dormant and sleepy and waking them up. It could be that there are some parts of our brains which are actually overactive and need depressing. And I believe the way that's done is you can change the frequency of the electrical activity. And so in some areas you can go low frequency, and I presume in others you go high. But that's all I know. The study has been marketed for people who have had depression, for whom they've been on medication and not found an improvement. And I would say that that's where I am. For what it's worth, I've been on citalopram and sertraline, and sertraline is currently what I'm on, 200 milligrams a day. So the purpose of this study is called the Bright Mind study, is to look at different types of TMS. Apparently there are different ways you can give it. You can give the same amount to the same bit of the brain in pulses, like a da-da-da-da-da-da. It was described to me like a woodpecker tapping on your head. And that's called repetitive TMS. And then there's another version which I still don't understand. Maybe one day I will, which has got a long name, but I think it's sometimes called theta TMS. And the purpose of the study is to see, well, which one works best, or do they work as well as each other? There seems to be an advantage to the theta because it takes a few minutes, 3 or 4 minutes. The repetitive TMS takes about 35-40 minutes. So I went through all the different interviews and stuff at Newcastle General Hospital beforehand, and today was my first treatment. It was done at St Nick's Hospital in Newcastle, and I entered the room and was met by 2 of the research people who were lovely. And my understanding is they sat me down in their sort of dentist chair, although they didn't lie me back. And the first thing they wanted to do is make sure that they'd got the right bit of the brain. So the way they do this is they stick this thing on my head about here, so this is the right side, and then they put the magnet on the left. And what they want to do is they moved it around until my right hand started twitching. So you'd hear this sort of it's almost like a clap sound, like a that. And the lady was moving it around and was sort of varying the intensity until my right hand did a little twitch. And I believe that's called the motor threshold. So they wanted to find essentially the sort of strength of the electrical signal to make my hand do that. It's a bit weird to think that someone can make my hand move by zapping my scalp, essentially. But that's what we can do. And I presume you can do other things as well, but that's what they did. And then what they did is they found the bit of my brain which they wanted to work on, which, as we described earlier, is this dorsal lateral prefrontal cortex. Once they did that, they then initiated the treatment. Now, the way the treatment works is you get a collection of pulses very close together, sort of like this. You hear a kind of, and then you have a pause of 20 seconds maybe, I'm not quite sure, and then it would happen again, and over and over and over, and that happened today over about 40 minutes. I don't know whether I received the repetitive TMS or the theta. It would have been obvious if it was the theta, because it would have taken 3 or 4 minutes and then I would have been out of there. But my understanding is that they were able to blind the study, so that means that they were able to sort of do if they were doing the theta TMS, it could last that amount of time and I wouldn't have noticed. So what they do is they do those sort of pulses, as electrical currents entering my scalp, in that fashion, in sort of bursts of 7 and 8. They probably did it about 40 times, and they do it at the intensity and roughly the intensity that it would cause my hand to twitch. Today, what they did is they, just so I got used to it, they started at a low frequency, so much lower than necessary, and then gradually built it up. So they went to sort of 5 levels, 1 to 5, and 5 is the level for which I will have treatment at from now on. So today was day 1. I have 19 more days of treatment to go. And the next 19, the zapping I received will be these sort of 7 or 8 zaps, and then a break, and that will happen probably about 30 times, and they'll all be at the same intensity, so that's sort of level 5. Today was just a case of getting used to it. So my thoughts so far are, looking at the studies, it looks really good for depression. People, the research suggests that a lot of people get better, a lot of people don't need medication as a result. Side effects are relatively low. Seems to be really quite an effective treatment. It seems though that the treatment doesn't last as long as people would like, maybe 6 months or a year, hopefully longer, but it sounds like it's something that needs to be kind of repeated. And I think what they're looking at in this study is whether the theta lasts longer, maybe it gives a longer benefit. So my personal experience was the low intensity ones were fine. So the first 3 levels, I was, it's a bit weird to have this tapping on your head, this zapping going on that you feel. Once I got to 4 or 5, I found it really quite unpleasant. I started getting pain. My understanding is that this is quite a rare side effect. But I started getting pain around the inside of my eye and around my sort of here, around the scalp area and down towards my left ear. You would get the pain for the duration of the zapping, and then in the break, the pain would disappear and then it would come back. But when we got to level 4 or 5, which is actually going to be the default for my next 19 sessions, it was really quite painful. My understanding is that it's because the area of my brain which is responsible for receiving information from my face is quite nearby where they're treating. And so it's not a surprise when you can't be mega accurate with where you put the magnet that there might be electrical activity going to bits that you don't want it to. But it was rather painful. So my understanding is come I'm having my next treatment in 2 days because it's New Year's Day tomorrow. My understanding is we're going to see whether we can find a happy medium where we're still treating the right area, but we're not inducing these side effects. And then with the 5th sort of highest level, which is going to be, as I said, the default going forward, I got really quite anxious and dizzy. From a medical perspective, I think what happened was I had what's called a vasovagal attack. So I suspect my blood pressure dropped, which means that my brain didn't have as much blood as it wanted, and it sent out a complaint message, and that message was the dizziness. And essentially it was saying, blood supply too low, increase please, and if you don't, then I might have to start making my consciousness kind of level decrease to preserve the really important bits of my brain. So once the last treatment finished, I had to be laid flat, legs up in the air, drink water. I was sweating. I had a fan put on me to cool me down, a cup of coffee, and within 3 or 4 minutes I felt absolutely fine. But I was a bit surprised. I wasn't expecting that, particularly when there's a lot made about the lack of side effects with this treatment. I mean, there's quoted seizures, I think 1 in 1,000, and headache in a small number. I suppose I wasn't expecting to feel dizzy at all. So that made me feel a bit uneasy going forward, particularly as the next treatment, next time I have it, it's going to be at the top intensity the whole time. Still with the breaks of a few seconds, but every cycle of impulses is going to be of that intensity. So that's where we are. It'll be interesting to see how things go. I'm quite apprehensive after the first treatments about the next ones, but I think it's very important. I have had depression for a long time. It ebbs and flows like anyone's does, I think, but I never felt like it's truly left me. So it'll be interesting to see where things go from here. From an anxiety point of view, that's probably what affects me the most. My understanding is that although anxiety is potentially treatable with TMS, I'm not sure whether TMSing this bit of my brain will help with that. Who knows? If it does, fantastic. So there we are. Thank you for watching if you've got this far. This might just be for my own personal reflection in future, but I think I wanted to make a video just in case anyone else is going through this and has any concerns or worries about it. I appreciate my first experience of it has been quite challenging, but my hope is that that's just a blip, and in the long run this is fantastic. If anyone's got any questions, I'm probably not the right person to ask, in the sense of this is all rather new to me, but maybe that's a good thing. Maybe having someone who's learning with you is helpful. Certainly with having a medical background, it might be that I'm able to absorb this information a bit quicker, I don't know. But feel free to leave any comments or likes or suggestions. That would be great. I'm going to try and post a video every day. It'll be a lot shorter than this, and don't worry. And see whether see how things go. Okay. Thank you again, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.